after the Pledge of Allegiance to do the superintendent's report, and then I go straight into...
Yep. Hi, welcome everyone. Sorry for the delay. Our executive session ran a little bit longer. I want to welcome you all to this workshop meeting. Can everyone please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, let me turn this over to Dr. Yanni for the superintendent's report.
Thank you, Ms. Kowalski. Good evening, everybody. I just want to welcome Ms. Raynor, our Deputy Superintendent. It's your first meeting. It's been only a week that we worked together, but it feels like we've been working together for many, many months. So wish you all the best again. Month of June, I love the month of June because we get to celebrate our students and their work. And this year for me is very special because I get to see all the traditions that we have here at Oyster Bay, East Norwich. And, you know, I admire our students every single day for the work that they do. We kept the schools open, and we didn't have to remind our students to keep the mask on, put the barriers on. They knew what was the right thing to do. They just did it because they are an amazing group. So I want to say thank you to them for all they do every day. Today was another typical day in the lives of seniors. They were distributing the yearbook, and they were in the back, and they had the food truck and the ice cream truck, so it was amazing. Last night we had a research symposium, and some of the students presented. We were in different groups in different breakout rooms. Dr. Moho, Ms. Raynor, we were all in there. And one of the things that you see is the amazing work that they do, the research and the knowledge and the vocabulary that they're using is just quite impressive, and truly looking forward for what the years will bring in terms of science research over here. I want to thank Dr. Ostroff for setting up this symposium and all the teachers coordinating and working with the students, supporting them. The concert have been recorded live, and some of them I attended live. But you could see the students' work, so hopefully the community had a chance to see them. Very proud to share with the community that and the board that Evelyn Ortiz was one of our high school students, was selected as the New York State Boys and Girls Club of America Youth of the Year. She won a scholarship and will advance to the regional competition. So very, very proud of this amazing accomplishment. I wish her all the best. In terms of, I'm sure you noticed a big crane. It was a Friday before Memorial Day weekend, a big crane in front of Theodore Roosevelt. About a month ago, we had a car accident. A car literally drove almost into the school. Thank God nobody got hurt. But since that day has been in my head every single day, the safety of our students. And we were able to move some of those cleats and put it in front of the school. So if you pass by, you notice it feels like they've been there forever. It makes the school look great, and the marquee is also coming. So I just want to update the community on that little change. Academic awards nights, Sharon, Ms. Lasher, organized with our team 2 wonderful celebrations, and it was amazing. It felt like a taste of what graduation is going to look like. It was 2 beautiful nights, and so proud of all of our students. I want to thank the community for their patience. I know that this weekend was a long weekend, mask, no mask, mask indoor, mask outdoor. It was just tough to keep up, but I thank you for your patience and your support. I do that every single month, and Right now, we have outdoor students not required to wear a mask, but if they want, they can. Inside, mask is still part of it. And I want to point something out to the community, and I know that some community members emailed me and emailed the board. I want to reiterate the fact that the board has to be commended for their work. Every single classroom in our schools have air conditioner. When you walk into the school, especially a day like yesterday and today, when you open the door, it feels like when you go home, and it's nice and cool. The classrooms have air conditioner. They're working. Every single classroom has AC. So we have to keep that in mind, because the board and previous administration, they invested so much to make sure that the students are comfortable and the students feel like they feel at home. So I just want to point that out. And, you know, we're going to continue to keep you posted. If there is a change, obviously we're not jumping. You know, we work with our council, we work with everybody, and sometimes the news media gets out there and news gets out there, and we're not going to jump to put a statement out there and then a day later retract and change it. We want to give you accurate information, and I know that sometimes it's difficult, but a lot of the things, sometimes they don't depend on us. So thank you for your patience, and continue to be patient. We want the best for them. We want them to be in school, and we want them to be safe. But at the end of the day, we have to follow the law. That's what we have. That's what we have to do. So that's part of my report. I guess I can just move into
The business and facilities report?
the business presentation, the facility presentation. So, as you this is the second 21st century improvements of OBEN, and this is a presentation that I put together together with my team, looking at some important facts about the idea of bringing a capital improvement at Oyster Bay. And I think I look at this from the perspective of the community, and tonight we're going to answer some questions. I know that we received some questions, but hopefully when you go through, you're listening to the presentation, most of them will be answered, but let's go through. Some important facts and timeline. The first one is, a first question that comes to mind is, why do we need to introduce another capital project? That could be a question that people would ask, and rightly so. So the most important thing is, when you look at this, the first bullet, it pretty much talks about the efficient way to think about a facility, one thing, right? The second one is, and also very important, is to be in compliance. This is a building, high school where we are right now, a building that was built in 1929. A lot of things, a lot of code requirements have changed, so being in compliance. Taking opportunity and also thinking about the future, but taking opportunities that are taking place right now. The one question that could come up is that people could ask, why we doing all this capital work? Why we don't take this work and include it into the budget every year or in the capital reserve? And the most important thing, I think, is the last bullet, which is, we want to create a learning environment and create something that it comes to our students at no additional expense. Now, when I talk about no additional expense, it doesn't mean that the cost of keeping the schools open and keeping the contracts going, and it doesn't mean there is no additional cost. It means that in terms of debt service, the debt service that we have is going to continue to be the same. It doesn't mean that the cost of living would stop. I wish I could do that and provide that service to the community. That would be quite amazing. So when I refer, and I know there was one community member that asked that question, to clarify, is no additional expense means no additional expense in terms of the debt service that we have. When you look at the question of why we need to do it now. Why can we wait? Okay, and so the first one and the most important thing is that we have a debt service that is coming off. With COVID, during the time of COVID, we learned about the importance of space. We learned about teaching and learning is changing. How students learn, how students work together. And the most important thing is that principal and interest, when we have a debt service that is coming off in 23-24, debt service will hit the following year. So in order for us to be on the safe side and have a debt service that will come at the end of the previous bond, we would need to do something so it will not have any gap between the end of the previous bond and the beginning of a new bond. So the other most important thing is the fact that when you look at interest rate right now is quite low. It is important to analyze debt service, and we have done that over the past in the past presentation. But you see that the bottom line, when you look at the debt, the total debt, you see that you have 2.3 million, and then you have on 22-23 school year, you have pretty much that last payment, and then it falls off. That was the payment that allowed the school district to renovate this library, build the gymnasium, and do pretty much the entire entrance. So when you see the difference in the simple bar graph, you could see that there is a difference in pretty much a drop of $1.7 million. And so the question is right now, when you look at that difference in debt service, how that debt service impacts the levy. And so the tax levy calculation that we have every year, one of the components of that tax levy is the debt service. And so you see, this presentation will be posted online and we're trying to share to as many people as possible. You see that if there is if we don't put a debt service, a new debt service, a new bond at the end of the previous bond, you will see that by the year 23-24, there would be a drop, a negative levy of 1.55. So that means that the maximum allowed tax levy that you can ask the community is negative 1.5. So if you want to go to a zero increase, you would have to pierce and go over. That would be a tremendous problem, because what you will have a tremendous fluctuation in the tax levy. So you would have a tax levy that is, this year is a 1.4. So if everything remains the same, and again, this is a projection, if everything remains the same, next year will be a 1.45, and then the following year will dip a negative 1.5, but then the year after will go a 1.5. So that could come back to be a tremendous problem, because you see the difference between the negative 1.5 and the 1 would be a major difference. So why, when we get the idea, and this is not a new idea, of introducing a new debt service, when you're looking at that projection, you basically will see that by adding a new bond, a new debt service in place, you will see that the community will be able to benefit from a work of in the range of $30 million, because that would be the cost of having a debt service of $2.2 million, which is the same as the one that we have right now, and it would have a pretty much no increase, and that's what I mean by no additional expense, in terms of that debt service line. So the debt service line will remain the same. And so you see in this bar graph that the blue bars represent the previous bond. You see year 23-24 will come off, but if you put one right next to it, there is going to be no difference in the debt service. So the question is, I always bring this to my own house, and I think my wife will ask me, okay, but what if we don't do it? And so I asked that question to myself, what if we do not add new debt service and later we decide to do work? Because the question is not if we do it, is when are we going to do any capital work? Because we need to maintain our facilities. We need to make sure that we have an environment where students can learn. So this is a very simple bar graph where you will see that you whatever a saving of, you could call it a saving, and a negative 1.5 tax levy, but then you go a 1.1, and then 3 years later you decide, well, we need to do some work, so that's going to come from somewhere, and you see that, again, is a projection. If everything will stay the same, CPI to around the 2%, tax growth factor, all those values remain the way they are. I mean, we can predict just as much as we can, but that's a projection. You will have an increase of 5%. That could be problematic. So when you look at the timeline, right, the main question right now, when you look at the timeline, you say, how can we look at this timeline and say, what can we do right now so that bond will come right at the end of the previous one? So I usually use the example of the car. You're leasing a car. At the end of the lease, you want to make sure that when you return the car, there is a new lease that comes in. So in terms of your budget, if you spend X amount on the cars, you bring the old car in, and you take the new car and you drive away. So what would be that timeline? Instead of dropping the car, leave the car there, then let 3-4 months or maybe a year go by, and then go buy a new car. What would be the timeline? And the timeline is very simple, but it is pretty much, we have to be proactive, and has to be done in this order. So what you look at December 2021 vote, which is in December. The summer of 22, which is next summer, the work will start. At the end of summer, middle of summer, as you begin work, you're borrowing the money, you put in the books, and then fall 23, you build a budget in the spring of 23, and then a new debt service goes on the books. One comes off, one comes on, and everything, debt service stays the same. So this is a quick timeline, so you will see clearly that it is important to borrow money at the summer of 22 so you can have everything in place. This is when you go from December to summer, that's the minimum amount of time that you need in order to get work going. Because in order to start work, you need to design, you need permits from the state, you need approval, so you can't shrink or expand that timeline. So when you look at the budget, work will start, and then in the spring of 23, everything is going to be on. You build the budget and it's going to be on. What if we do not follow this timeline, right? So we scratch everything. Now you see that on the top part of this chart, you see that that's the perfect timeline. So that timeline would be pretty much December to summer. If you shift everything over, the bottom of the graph, you shift everything over, and you decide, I'm not going for December vote, I'm going to decide to go for spring vote. What will happen, the time that you need to get everything approval and to put boots on the ground, it needs to be shifted so then the work will start in the fall, but at that time, you're already too late to put that into the books. So what kind of work we need? So we'll look at the high school. You see that the high school would be the renovation of the 2 rooms that in the library, and would be the renovation on the 2nd floor. In addition to that, and the community will be able to see this online, the work is also not just the innovation lab by the library, 21st century classroom, turf field, but it's also in red, I listed a lot of the work that comes from the building condition survey. Like I said last time, the building condition survey is sort of a checkup of our building that needs to be submitted to the state every 5 years, and it's pretty much checking everything that is in code and compliance. Those are the things that you don't see. That's the boiler, the piping, and things that are not, I call it not flashy, because you're not going to see that we're insulating the pipe all around the building, but that will create more efficiency, that will create cost savings. Window repair creates, obviously, tremendous savings in terms of even just opening the window. Sometimes if a window is not functioning properly, can be a safety issue. So when you look at the work, is the back of the library over here where we are. So that would be the renovation. This is the current place. So you see the book room, and that has been renovated in years. So I put some pictures there. And then on the second floor, you see that these are some of the classrooms that would be renovated and expanded. So it would be a 21st century classrooms where students would be able to work together, collaborate, and really use a different approach, different teaching and learning approach that our teachers have been using it, but adapting it to it. But this will give them an opportunity to really expand and really move into a different direction. The other one would be the turf field. The turf field is, we have a field over here that is used, but obviously with the turf field, you have a lot more usage that you can have with rain. One of the question of some of the community members asked about what kind of material we will have. That's a chill fill, right? That's the one that we use in chill fill, which is the type of material that does not allow the field to get to a high heat level. So when it's hot, that type of filling would allow the field not to be extremely hot and unplayable. So that's the one that we use at Vernon, and it's a beautiful field. I'm sure you have seen that. The field that would be used for several sports, football, soccer, field hockey, girls lacrosse, and softball. And the field is used for games even now. But the question is why turf and not grass? We have beautiful grass, at Vernon. We have the turf and the grass, but the grass you can't play on the grass all the time. I was talking to a parent the other night. I was watching the softball game. The girls are doing very well. They're in the playoff. But I was watching the game, and they were commenting on how beautiful the grass look, and that's because we've been using the turf when the weather is bad and you're not destroying the grass. So that will give us a little bit of, time to the grass to kind of grow and not completely destroy every single field that we have, grass field that we have. In terms of Vernon, we have tremendous work over there and continuing the same line of empowering our students to achieve excellence. So you see that we have a renovation of the Butler building, new ground storage, renovation of the cafeteria, music and renovation of classrooms, and some of, again, in red, that comes straight from the building condition survey. Installation of the safety glass in the main office. Right now, if a student will bump into that glass, it can be dangerous. A natural glass leak detection system, upgrade interior door hardware, pretty much done in every building, and that's based on to bring the building up to code in terms of code compliance. So you see some of the sketch. This is the area view of the building. You see in green and blue. Green are areas that are renovated. blue will represent areas that are going to be construction. So this is also, you see the area where the current playground and basketball court is. That's going to be moved in the back of the building, where right across from the softball field. And that's also a safety issue. Right now, the playground and the basketball court is right on the main road. This would be in the back, so the parents can have a little bit of peace of mind that is in a more safe place. So that's also a safety thing. Here would be the front, where I put the X in yellow is where the playground is and the basketball court, and that's what the new area is going to be. So that's going to be an entire new wing, renovated classroom space for orchestra and the music rooms. The current rooms are going to be converted into classrooms, so going to be additional space for that. And the second major work is the Butler building. The Butler building is at the end on the opposite side, facing the building to the right, and that one is going to be renovated. Now, that building is going to be renovated inside, and is going to be also extended. Vernon is a very special place, 3 to 6. You have students that are just coming out of Theodore Roosevelt, babies, and then you have the 6th grader ready to go to middle school and be with the high school. So you have a wide range, and sometimes you need more spaces than you need to. So this would act as a cafetorium, and gymnasium is used. That space is also used for high school students after school hours. So it's got tremendous use. And what I did for the community, I kind of want to show you how this building is divided into 3 sections, and they're all going to be that's going to be one section. So you see the left side is what it looks like right now, and inside you see that is almost a gymnasium, right? Then the middle part is just a storage, and then the right part is a ground storage. So the renovation will call for opening the whole thing up for the students. And that's why we're looking at the creation of a storage facility right on the path to go to the turf field. So that's what's going on there. The other piece is the cafeteria. The cafeteria hasn't been renovated since, I believe, the beginning was never renovated, right? I know that Todd was here, was saying that was the cafeteria when he was there. I was back in Italy, so I don't know what it looked like, but I trust the people here. So that renovation of cafeteria is going to call for an extension of the cafeteria, and so renovation inside. So this is a little bit of zoom on it, and that's what it looks currently inside. Our custodian crew and Wayne, they do an amazing job in keeping the building and the cafeteria in top-notch, in very excellent condition. Roosevelt is the K-2 building, and this is an aerial view of the building. So here we have, again, in red is straight from the building condition survey, things that must be done. And so we have a building extension. So the building extension is going to go right at the end where adjacent to the current playground. And I took some pictures. I was there the other day. So the extension is going to go this way, where the yellow arrow is. And the building is going to come out. It's going to be 2 stories. And so you have first floor, second floor, and that's the inside. It's going to generate 8 classroom, office space, bathroom, and all the other support service. One of the questions that came up from a community member was that there was some kind of aid some kind of funding from the state. I'm not aware of that. I know that there was a funding in terms of COVID release, America Rescue Plan was, but not to the point of this amount of money. So I am not sure. I'm not sure of any funding that he was referring to. So that was one question. In terms of timeline of work, I think that's important that we share with the community what the timeline. A project of this magnitude, which is in the range of $30 million, it's most likely going to be divided into 3 phases. Phase 1 is summer 22, and we spill a little bit into the end of the fall. So the first item that will go on, it will be the turf field. The reason that will go on, together with the items in red, which are from the building condition survey, is because the turf field does not require a lot of electrical, mechanical. It's just a simple design, and obviously can be approved quickly, designed quickly and approved quickly. So that's the first item that goes on. And then all the other items, they're from the building condition survey. So that's where the school are in, and that's pretty much the timeline. So when you look at turf field, for example, that should be completed by probably October of next October 2022, and then all those items completed. Some of the work is done during school, during the summer, full force, right, from beginning to end. But during the school day, when school starts, that could be done after hours, and we work with the contractors on that. Phase 2 will be the bulk of the work, and that work will continue until probably fall 2023 and maybe spring. So for example, when you look at the music wing, they would do the bulk of the work during the summer, heavy construction, noise and everything. Then once they get to that point, they close the building, and then they can work inside during school day, and then they open up the building connecting the new wing to the old wing. So a lot of the work can be done there. So you see that the music wing, the building extension, they probably go 9 to 12 months. So that the expected completion of work would probably be summer 23, fall, and the last piece would be the phase 3, which is summer of 24. Work should be completed by the end of summer. When you look at the total cost by building, obviously you see the school of $5 million, Vernon, which is all those extensions that I talked about, and then the Roosevelt at $12 million. The total is $28 million, and then you see the building condition survey. All those items in red, they must be done because we need to be in compliance with the state, is in the range of about $1.2 million or so. So altogether, we're just shy of $30 million. I created this chart to kind of divide a little bit of work. You're talking about instructional and infrastructure. Those two things go hand in hand. Obviously we could talk about the infrastructure and say that would be providing a right educational environment, but I think that when you look at the building condition survey, those items, renovating an acid waste tank in the boiler room, I'm not sure how instructional there is, but if you don't have that, students cannot be in a safe environment. So they go hand in hand and kind of divided by a simple bar graph. So you see that the bulk of it is at the instructional level. In terms of looking at the timeline, one of the questions from a board member was what do we do to promote? I mean, I know that some people are attending listening to the presentation, but we have a large community. So what we plan to do? We plan to put notification out there. We plan to have a next meeting on July 22nd to continue the conversation. I'm planning to visit all the different groups, the PTA meetings. I've shared with them. I've gone to the senior center. I'm available, and I said to a couple of members of our board, even if there is a group of people that would like to have a meeting and discuss and ask questions, specific questions, they don't feel comfortable to ask in public or email, I'm open to discuss it with anybody. I'm here, so it would be my pleasure. The timeline that we follow, I posted out on the website, is pretty straightforward. But again, I go back to the simple point of the fact that if we do not have a bond vote on December, everything would be a moot point. It needs to come right at the end. Some of the question before I open to our board members, there was a question about how will you provide an opportunity for the community to decide on individual projects? That's a job of the board. The board is obviously the representation of the community. The board is listening to the community. We are reading every email. We're listening to every phone call that comes. So ultimately is my recommendation to the Board of Education, and the board will take everything into consideration. Turf field, what is the benefit? There are some people that believe that natural grass is preferable. I do too, but sometimes if you have all grass, it gets destroyed, students don't get to play. So if you have a rainy day, if you have 2 days of rain, and you try to go on the grass field the next day, you'll destroy the field, and the students are not going to play in a safe environment. So safety, I think, also maintaining the facility there. We have a little bit of grass, a little bit of turf. There is a little bit for everybody. The other question that came up was about the infill. There are a lot of toxic metals, carcinogens, and latest excessive heat causing dehydration and burns. This was a question from a community member, and the answer is we're going to use chill fill. We have the turf. When the temperatures are extremely high, students are not allowed to be on the field anyway. But I think it would be safe for the students to play, just like we have had in the past. There was another question: when will you provide MSDS for each component used in the construction of the turf? I learned about this one. The material safety data sheets are typically provided during the initial contractor submittal process. So this is way too premature at this point. For this construction, such as the new wing, what is the increase in operational expense? So we did a quick analysis of the square footage. So we're looking at approximately $26,000 for operational expense for both buildings. Again, you adding an entire new wing, you creating a space that is necessary. Some students right now are in the back of the auditorium in places that are not conducive to learning. So I want to stress that, and sometimes with the expense, it comes with the additional square footage comes some expenses, but also some savings, because you're creating windows repair, boiler repair, piping, and other maintenance that you do. We're also going to have some savings because we're talking about efficiency, a more efficient system. I just cannot stress enough the fact that when I'm talking about no additional cost to the taxpayer, I refer to the debt service that we have. So if you have a debt service of $2.2 million and I put a next one the same amount, there is no additional cost in terms of debt service, but there is a cost of living. I wish I can stop that. I'm going to try really hard. The additional funding from New York State, and I'm not sure what the gentleman was referring to. I'm not aware of any funding that was given by New York State to have a project of this magnitude. And I think I answered all those questions that came. I would like to open to board members if they have any questions.
Thank you, Dr. Young. That was Very detailed, as usual. Does anybody have any additional questions that haven't been answered already?
Do we know how much building aid we'll get from a $30 million bond?
It's about 10%. Our building aid ratio is 10%.
10%.
Yeah,
So I think, in hearing the community talk about any sort of federal aid that we've received just a very negligible amount of COVID money, right? We're probably the least on Long Island.
Yeah.
Do we know exactly what we received in COVID funding?
it's close to between 1.1, 1.2 million.
Okay, and that probably just covered
Yeah.
part of our additional COVID expenses.
Correct.
So just so the community understands, right? I mean, we're probably neutral or negative when it comes to how much the federal government covered our COVID expenses, right?
Correct. And Ms. Santos, you're correct on two reasons. One, we didn't receive much compared to other districts. And also, what is important to note is the fact that the American Rescue Plan money that we received and the CRRSA, right? That's very specific in nature. So we can do some work on ventilation, which we're going to do, but learning loss and other specific requirements, they are dictated by that amount. And that amount we cannot include it into the budget. That's a special aid that is separate, and it cannot be a recurring cost. So definitely not going to be, not going to do much in terms of, this type of expense. And to go back to what I was saying before, it is also important to know that a project of this magnitude cannot be included into the capital reserve that we have. In terms of our capital reserve right now, we have about $2.5 million.
2.5 and then 500 for technology.
Yeah,
so
and 500 for technology. So that would be not enough to be included, or to include in the operational budget of the district.
Right. The capital reserve we established for things like, we need like repairs and maintenance to our, like those type of maybe substantial capital projects, but not like building new buildings. The only way school districts could possibly build a new building is by issuing debt. The money is not in the annual budget in order to do these type of facility improvements. And these opportunities come up once every 15 years because the duration of the bond is normally 15 years. So every 15 years, you get one opportunity to improve your schools, right? So this is the opportunity for Oyster Bay. So thank you, Dr. Yanni.
I also think we should look at the interest rates, too. Now is just such a great time to borrow that we're looking at if we can do this now and save the taxpayers money in the future from future borrowing. This would be really great for our taxpayers. Okay, any other questions? Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. So let's move on to personnel actions, and if you notice, we have an insert. Dr. Yanni, we have two 1.1s, though, so I just want, hopefully afterwards you can fix that to maybe 1.2.
That's correct. We'll adjust and post it in a new agenda.
Okay, great.
Mm-hmm.
Resolved upon the recommendation of the Superintendent of Schools, the Board of Education of the Oyster Bay East Norwich Central School District hereby approves the following professional personnel and civil service personnel resolutions as listed, and that goes on to page 3, including the new insert. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second? Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries, and I'd like to welcome Jacqueline Gibbons now as the...
Welcome to Oyster Bay East Norwich.
Okay.
Looking forward.
She will be the new assistant principal, so welcome. Let's go on to Section 5, Special Services. Resolved upon the recommendation of the Superintendent of Schools, the Board of Education of the Oyster Bay East Norwich Central School District hereby approves the following special services resolutions as listed. And that goes to, am I right, all the way to page 6? Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. On to new business. Resolved upon the recommendation of the Superintendent of Schools, the Board of Education of the Oyster Bay East Norwich Central School District hereby approves the following new business resolutions as listed. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. And that's it, folks. I'd like to make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
So moved.
Second.
Second, okay. Good night, everyone. Thank you for attending.
Thank you. Have a good night, everybody.